Are you in a Chapter 13 and your car broke down? Maybe you're in a Chapter 13 and you had a wreck and now you're going to have to replace your car. You know, I run into this sort of thing pretty much on a monthly basis, if not on a weekly basis. And so I wanted to talk with you today about it so you would know what happens if you have to change cars while you're inside a Chapter 13 bankruptcy case. Hello, I'm Dan Scott. I'm an attorney who practices bankruptcy law in Knoxville, Tennessee, Sevierville, Maryville, and Dandridge. Today I want to talk with you about your Chapter 13 case. You know, don't you, that when you file your case, you create what's called a Chapter 13 estate. And what that means is all of your assets are inside this estate. And in large sense, that means that you can't sell assets, you can't really buy assets, and you can't borrow money while you're inside the case. Well, of course, when you're in a 3-year or 5-year case, what happens? Life, right? Life happens. And so you're going to run into somebody, hopefully somebody won't run into you. Well, probably better for them to run into you than you run into them. But you're liable to have a wreck, okay? Hopefully it's going to be insured. You're going to have insurance on your cars, but so it'll be insured and you're going to have to replace that vehicle. And so that's a simple process because you've got one payment on this car and then your insurance company will pay for it and you'll switch around. Hopefully it'll end up being the same payment. If it's not the same payment, then you may have to adjust your budget some way in order to allow for the extra money for the second payment or for the increase in payment. And what you have to do with that is you have to let your bankruptcy lawyer know, and then I would let the bankruptcy trustee know, and then we work out an agreement on how that will happen inside your Chapter 13 case. But what you don't want to do is adjust the damage on your car with the insurance company, replace the car, and then all of a sudden now you've sold an asset while you're inside your case, which is contrary to the bankruptcy rules, and it's going to be a problem for you. So that's the easy one. The much harder one is where you're situated where you've got a car that's paid for and you don't wreck it, but the transmission goes out. You know, if you've got a $2,500 car, a $3,000 car, and the transmission goes out, most likely it's going to cost more money to put the transmission in than really it's worth to have an older car with a new transmission. And so what happens most of the time is you want to replace the car. Now here's the challenge. You've got a similar situation as we just talked about, but now you've got to go in and find a place in your budget to finance the car. Because, you know, you're going to have paid in your case, shown in your case, your budget showing you've got this much money and you're paying it into your case. But now you're saying, look, I've got to carve a little of that money out so that I can pay for a car. And that requires a little creativity. It requires a little cooperation from the Chapter 13 trustee. And look, the Chapter 13 trustee understands that life happens during your Chapter 13 case. And so you have to be reasonable. I mean, you know, you're not going to come in and ask the trustee, hey, I need to get a $600 car payment when you didn't have a car payment before. The chances of that happening is pretty low. But I looked at the budget today and, you know, there was an adjustment in the budget we could make that would allow us to get a car that we were going to pay $230, $260 a month. And we were able to get situated where we might be able to get a car. Now, just telling you this so that you can understand that there are ways for you to get relief when you're inside your Chapter 13 case. But what you don't want to do is just go on down the road and do it and ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Because somewhere down the road, you may have to ask again. And you don't want to get in a situation where all of a sudden the facts turn on you and what you thought you had was a pretty good Chapter 13 case where all your debts are going to be paid at the end of the 3 to 5 year case, and then you find out you've got a problem on your hands. So that's what you do if you got to replace your car, whether you have a loan on it or don't have a loan on it, whether you have a wreck or maybe you have a transmission go out, or sometimes they just die, right? That's what cars do.